Welcome to Copy Chief Radio. Today's show is a freelancer's journey episode where successful freelancers share the tactical moves that catapulted their careers through the phases of the freelancer's journey. To see all 7 phases, where you are now, and how to move forward, head over to copychief.com/phases. And if you want to check out all 4 types of CCR episodes, head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio. We got another freelancer's journey episode. I don't want to give you too much away, but these are kind of my favorite to do because it's just so cool to hear from people who have been where you might be right now. If you're a freelancer making your way through this wild world of freelancing, trying to do so much of this on your own, figure it out, and know that some of the struggles and the challenges you're encountering are common, and better yet, get insights to how to move on, how to do certain things better, how to not stress and know it's going to be okay, and get some really tactical advice too. That's what these episodes are all about. And we make playbooks for each of these episodes that you can get in the show notes pages. So I'm very excited to be joined today by Angie Colee, who is my longtime friend and someone who's been working with me in Copy Chief and in my coaching programs for years. I've learned so much working with Angie, learning from Angie, watching Angie coach, coaching Angie. Angie, you've been a huge part of my progression, my journey, and it's so great to have you share yours today.
That's so great. Thank you for that intro. I was joking with someone just the other day that I just need to record you introducing me to a podcast and then play that every morning. Do you offer that as a service?
Yeah, I'd happily do that. I mean every word of it when I gloat on people. My Achilles is I don't like having a lot of strangers on the show because I can't. When you feel this way about somebody, you know it's going to be good conversation because I know all the things I want people to learn from you, right? So let's go back on the journey here. This is great. This is all about you and just getting to share and sit back in your leather chair and relish how amazing. And of course, this is not like, oh, Angie's done, we're looking back. You're really still on the upswing of everything you're doing. We'll talk about some of that. But you've got a lot of interesting, unique experience for how you got into freelancing. So let's start at the beginning. What were you doing before you discovered that, hey, I can go solo and have my own business?
Oh, that's interesting. So I had the inklings that I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know how to make it pay off. And somewhere along the way, I stumbled into screenwriting and just thought that I was going to be Shonda Rhimes. I'm going to create shows. I'm going to create worlds. I'm going to run shows. Power mad. So I went and got a master's degree called the Entertainment of Industry Management. That is my master's degree. It's like hybrid business creative. But basically I was out in my second year working in LA and I was doing internships. I was at Warner Brothers, CBS, NBC Universal, all the big majors. And after graduation, I was having trouble finding a job in television development, which was what I wanted. Those are the people that go find the shows and bring them to the networks and make sure that they fit in the brand. I was working for the Oprah Winfrey Network right before it launched. So this was like 2010. It launched in 2011. And right before the launch of the network, I got laid off. And I started having a panic attack because all of a sudden I couldn't even get temp work anymore. And it was like, how am I going to pay my bills? LA is an expensive town to be in. It's really hard to be in if you're broke.
I know it.
Into the industry.
I know it will. Oh, it's brutal.
I'm scrambling like mad to try and figure out how am I going to make ends meet. I'm still trying to get temp gigs, but nothing's coming in. And for some reason, and I still can't explain it to this day, a random conversation popped into my head from one of my screenwriting classes when I was getting my degree. And I had met this journalist named Gladys who just interviewed a dude who wrote a book called The Well-Fed Writer. And I'm telling you, in the middle of this post-layoff panic, for some reason, you could picture a cartoon thought bubble over my head that just went, The Well-Fed Writer. It started blinking at me. So for some reason, I just decided I needed this book. And I spent $20 that I didn't have on procuring this book at Barnes & Noble's before you could get a used copy online. Devoured it in an afternoon. And it was really the first time that, somebody gets paid to write this. That it actually occurred to me. Somebody gets paid to write this. And I think I could do that. Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
Amazing. Yeah. I think everybody remembers that moment where that reality crept in. Because, there's so many reasons to think to disqualify yourself. But when you actually see something that seems exciting to you and your next thought is, this is for me. I remember when I discovered copywriting, it's like the second miracle in my life. The fact that I had somehow found stand-up and had a whole career at that. And then a second thing that made my hair stand up to think about actually like getting to do that every day is like, what are the chances?
I know. And it's so great that like when an opportunity comes like that and you can feel that this is the right path to be on, because that's what that really felt like. And interestingly enough, a few years later, I was going through my book collection and realized I had another book on copywriting by a different author, and I had read it, but it didn't make any sense. So it's interesting that like you can read two different things about the same topic and only one of them really gets you that understanding.
Right.
Like that book changed my life, The Well-Fed Writer.
Yeah, right message, right time. So what you said, okay, I can get paid to write. What did that mean? From what point do you then discover the thing you're ultimately going to get paid to write?
I did that. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so I'm going to try everything. As long as they pay me, I'm good. So I wrote business plans. I edited people's screenplays. For 3 years in a row, I wound up writing the live production script for the Miss Black USA pageants. I had never written a live production script before that, so I kind of had to figure it out on the fly. But apparently they liked it because they kept asking me back to rewrite it. So
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, Google is your friend. You can figure out things on the fly and people will still like it. It's amazing. I wrote people's websites. I think I wrote pet websites and music websites, like just anything that anybody would pay me for, but it wasn't sustainable. I felt like I was spending so much time bidding on projects because I was on all of the freelancer websites. So I went back into Peter's book and I'm trying to figure out how to level out my income. And I tried everything. I tried cold calling. I went and made myself a list from the book of lists at the library. Okay, we'll all just laugh at me right now because I'm already laughing. I made homemade flyers on my dinky little printer, like sitting there waiting for them to one line at a time, like peek out until I got like 50 flyers. And then I got up one morning at like 5:00 and walked down Main Street in my town in California, dropping these flyers because I was deathly paranoid about what they would say if they caught me advertising my business. And this is a recurring theme in the growth of my business. Like, I'm so scared to advertise it. I don't want to be caught. Like, I'm doing something wrong by telling people that I'm here and I want to help them.
Right.
So eventually I wasn't figuring it out. Like something was missing in figuring out how to grow the business. So I shifted focus to, okay, well, if I get really good at copywriting as a craft, then maybe I can figure out the business stuff later. So I started applying for junior copywriting roles. And I wound up getting one and going in-house for about 1.5 years and then leveraging that into a full-time role at a different company and then becoming their senior copywriter and training and running the team. And yeah, it just kind of took off from there.
Wow. I just want to go back to the flyer thing. I always say, like, when people ask me, what's the X factor? Like, what do you see in somebody? And I always go back to that. I'm like, if somebody is that determined seems so silly to put out flyers, but there's something so beautiful about that. It's like, I don't know what to do. All I know is I'm damn sure I want somebody to hire me to do this. Mm-hmm. That intention and that desire, I know they're going to succeed. Anything beyond that is not going to surprise me how well they do. But if they don't have that, I don't know how to coach that.
Yeah. If I had come up with an excuse before I went out on my little flyer, which by the way, didn't pan out at all. Not even a single lead from the flyers. So the flyers didn't work, but I tried it. And I think that's the important point. Like I didn't talk myself out of it before I tried it. And even though it didn't work out, I also didn't let that stop me.
Right. Exactly. Right. Then, like you said, you do get an opportunity and it's in an agency setting. You excel there. Pretty soon you're chiefing and you're running the show. And so then it's time, this is sort of where you and I get to know each other pretty well. Mm-hmm. And it's time to now go full-time freelance and all the anxieties because by the way, a lot of people, when they're fretting about when to do it, fate steps in and tells them now's the time, because guess what? You just lost that job or something. Not the case for you. You actually made the leap. You jumped off of the safe boat into the choppy ocean.
Mm-hmm. That's a great story, and remind me to tell you about getting fired from a job I didn't have, because that's related to this. But you and I met, I think I joined in January of 2015. And I love telling that story to our RFL coaching students, because I'd been a copywriter for full time for years at that point, and I was just about to be promoted to senior copywriter. And I remember you and I having a new member call and you telling me, why aren't you posting? It's like 4 months later. I had joined and I hadn't posted anything. And I was like, Dean Jackson and Ross O'Loughlin and all these smart people saying smart things, and I can't be smart like them. I'm just over here being a corporate copywriter. And you told me that there were people out there that would love to have my experience, which was just something that wasn't even in my awareness, and that I could help people exactly where I am as I was. And so I started interacting a little bit more, and I just started answering so many questions that people started seeing me as an expert and authority, which was just bewildering to me. Mm-hmm. And then you started RFL, and I was like, this job is killing me. I finally got the dream, right? I leveraged nothing. I leveraged a book at the height of brokenness into this career where I'm being paid an awesome salary in San Francisco, of all places, but I'm miserable. It's like an hour or two commute every day. I'm going into this office, I'm pulling 10 to 12 hour days. I'm a senior copywriter at that point. I have anywhere from 2 to 6 hours of meetings a day, and I'm still expected to deliver on my full workload.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. And everybody outside of the creative team hated us. It's irrational, but like they'd come into our cube if they disagreed with wording on one of their products. The merchants would come over and be like, how dare you? And just make a massive scene. And it was mortifying. One of the VPs even said in the middle of a meeting that this company was better before we had copywriters.
Oh my God.
At the time, I was the only copywriter. So it was very clear who in the room was being called out. So I just knew when you and I got to talking and we started talking about RFL, like, this is the thing that I was wanting before. I'm going to go get good at copy. Now it's time to go get good at business. And I think Kevin has this missing piece. Like, how do I leverage this copy talent that I've amassed into a business? So it's still, I did RFL with you, booking secret conference rooms with locking doors, showing up on the calls when I could. I think I did probably about half of the work just with the busy schedule and the commute and all that stuff. And still people were like, oh my God, Angie's this expert and I need to talk to her. I managed to leverage the authority content that we did into projects with like masterclass. It was crazy. And so I met connections through posting that and wound up saving enough of a runway. And then John Carlton kind of kicked me off the fence. We wound up in a meeting with him and I was just kind of agonizing because I didn't realize it until I had the space to recognize it, but I was so stressed out by my day-to-day life that I couldn't see a way out. I was just spiraling around being stuck in this job. And I was telling this at a mastermind and John Carlton looks at me and he goes, Angie, it's okay if you're meant to be an employee. And my immediate reaction was like, F you, John. And that was the point in time where I was like, nope, not meant to be an employee. It's time to make my exit plan. So I immediately shifted from like overwhelm into like, okay, so what does an exit plan look like? And then he and Stan started helping me come up with ideas. And the first one was go to work and pitch a modified working schedule. See if you could get on like 410s because you're already working 10-hour days anyway.
That's right.
As well as see if you could get one off.
Right.
And I put probably a couple weeks worth of like time and research into making this proposal, getting my boss on my side. He took it up the ladder and they said, nope, we're not going to adjust this for you. If we did this for you, we'd have to do it for everyone else. And I'm like, I don't really care. That's your job. I'm only asking for what I need for me. Yeah. And when they told me no to something that I said that I needed to work and stay happy, I knew that was the pivotal moment. If I stayed, they knew that they had me and they could treat me however they wanted. Right. I had to leave. I
kind of forgot about that. Now I remember clearly that we gave you that challenge that day and you and I were able to kind of follow up on it. And it was courageous. You know, it's such an easy thing to agree to and say, that sounds good. To actually follow up and it's as hard as quitting, like to walk in and talk about, you know, using your persuasion skills. We always talk about copy applies everywhere in life, getting your boss on your side. And their answer was somewhat legit. As a corporate entity, it makes sense that they would say that, right? It is a conundrum. But the important thing is that you recognize that there was, okay, if there's no flexibility here, that was the true test.
Yeah.
Can you make it so I can exist here? Because I'm telling you right now, I can't. And they were like, no, we can't. We can't change a thing to do that. And that was your cue to leave. Again, very courageous then to take that cue and actually do it.
Well, and that was the extra nudge that I needed. Like you mentioned, it was data. I was just looking for a yes, I should stay. No, I shouldn't stay. Can you work with me? It was a company that was owned by a parent company, and the parent company had flexible leave as a policy on its website. But apparently our company didn't do that. And I was like, all right, well, screw you.
Interesting. Like you said, did your research? Everything a copywriter does. Researched, persuaded, had the call to action, and they didn't buy. So you split. Ask any experienced freelancer and they'll tell you that getting started and landing those first few clients, it's the hardest part. If you're struggling to find consistent work, you want to build more confidence in your skills, or you're just starting out in your freelance journey, don't worry. That's exactly why I created Escape Velocity. It's my step-by-step coaching program for how to kickstart a freelance career, attract quality clients, and confidently deliver great work. Let me help you find and close good gigs so you can quickly launch and grow a successful and sustainable freelance writing business. Learn more at copychief.com/EV. Copychief.com/EV. I'll see you there. Okay, so now you're out in the big bad world of go sell Angie. What's the money skill you're leading with when you do that?
I just reached out and said, hey, I'm a copywriter and I have this corporate experience in retail advertisements. Who do you know that I can help with? And I wound up working on launches inadvertently, like product launches, the people that I was introduced to. And then I knew Abby already, but Abby knew that Jeff Walker was looking. And so I went out for that role with the team. And then this is kind of related. I left in December. I started really hardcore on my business in January. I billed $10,000 in the first month, 5 figures, stopped advertising, the classic blunder to fulfill on all these projects, burnt out, took half of February off to kind of recover from that, and then was already behind the curve starting to advertise again. So I started running out of money over the next couple months while I was looking for work and wound up taking a temporary contract back at the old day job 1 month.
That's right.
And I was filling in for somebody that was on vacation, who better to call in than me. I used to do the work. And on the 5th day there, the entire team got laid off. So I got fired from a job I didn't have. And that was like a wake up call for me, because I think the old fear was kicking in, the head trash. I tried this the first time around and I failed, and I'm failing now. And maybe I can go back, was this thought that I didn't realize I had in the back of my head until it suddenly wasn't an option anymore. And then I got really, really serious about buckling down and looking for prospects. And just when I thought I was going to have to look for jobs again, the role with Jeff Walker, they offered me a trial retainer. And I loved working with them so much that I extended for 6 months after our initial 90 days. And then I wound up going full time with them for a number of years. And it was just the best thing. And now I'm a launch specialist, as it turns out.
Yeah. You were the head of the team there. And so you were able to now take the experience, create the similar momentum you did at that first opportunity, where you basically hit a ceiling of ability for you to exist, happily there. You started to feel, squashed, and now go with a kind of company where there is flexibility and they see everything as an opportunity and excel through the ranks just as quickly, but make it work for a lot longer because it's a small company. It's an entrepreneur instead of a corporate entity.
That helps with a lot of the healing too. I think where a lot of freelancers struggle in relationships with clients is like wondering if people are legit, if they're cool. Is this a red flag? Are they trying to take advantage of me? And like working with Jeff's team made me really realize, not like there are dysfunctional places like that job I used to work. And then there are clients out there that really care and are trying, and we're just humans trying to have a conversation. And sometimes we're going to miscommunicate.
Yeah. Yeah. But the intent is there. The intent. That's the thing. Intent plus communication will always equal the best result. So you do that for a good 3 years or so. Yeah.
Almost 4 years I was there.
So that was really great and very credentializing for you. I mean, you became a leader in his programs. He would have you on stage critiquing copy and doing things. And it was just a big, important part of your journey. And then because it is a fast moving business and a growing business, some burnout begins to occur again along the way. And so you're again faced with the decision, is it time to move on?
Yeah. And I think it just kind of coincided with realizing, and some copywriters get to this point, right, where copy has gotten me this far, and that thing in my gut that used to light me up about it, it just doesn't feel like it's there anymore. That, oh my God, yay, I love writing promotions, was just like, okay, so what, I've done this for a while and I'm very happy and I'm satisfied with my work and I love this team. What do I do now to bring back that spark? You and I talked about this a lot because I felt a lot of internal conflict because it turns out I love coaching people and I love answering questions and providing advice. Again, I was just terrified. Like, I love this team and I'm good at the copy. And what do I do if I'm not a copywriter? Like,
yeah.
what?
And what's my identity if I'm not Jeff Walker's head of copywriting? Or and you know, these people look up to me and I chief them and I'm coaching them internally and all that. So what was it? Like, this is a really fascinating point in the story to me because you could have coasted. They were never going to get rid of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what was the calling or what were the circumstances where it all came together and you're like, I just got to do it?
It kind of goes back to, I'm going to circle back to our new member call where you told me to get in there and start helping people and that I was expert enough. You said something to me that stuck with me. And if anybody knows me, that they're going to be familiar with this. You told me, I feel like you're waiting for permission to go be an expert and help people. And you don't actually need permission. You don't. But in case you're waiting for it, I, Kevin Rogers, hereby anoint you, Angie Colee, enough of an expert to go out there and help people right now, as you are. You have permission to go out there and kick some ass. And so years later, for those of you that are familiar with my journey, I have a book in the works called Permission to Kick Ass. I have a podcast called Permission to Kick Ass, and it stems back to that conversation. And a lot of our work together really helped me realize that this was my passion and this was my calling. And when the writing wasn't jazzing me up anymore, working on the book was, thinking about the podcast was. And so I started to realize that I could step out from behind the scenes, which is, you know, I built this role behind the scenes, loved it, did a lot of great work, had a lot of fantastic success. Maybe it's time to be Angie instead of the voice of Jeff. And that you were right. I could have coasted forever. But what I recognized was when I was working for clients, I wanted to bring my best to them. And in focusing on bringing my best to them and making sure that they were getting their money's worth from me, I always put my stuff last. And so for years, I was working on Jeff's stuff and not making progress on my personal stuff. And even after I left Jeff's team, I lined up like a consulting gig to help me pay the bills because I was scared I wasn't going to be able to with just my coaching stuff alone. And I'm so glad that that one fell apart because when I started working on the book and the podcast full time, everything just started taking off. Like the thing I was most scared to do wound up being the thing I needed to do the most.
Exactly. Isn't that always the thing? But again, man, leaps of faith have just been the theme for you. It's interesting to me, Angie, because not to get too personal, but you share pretty much everything. And that's part of your stepping out and owning this role because you always did this in the coaching you did. And you're very quick to share the hardest times you've been through to help somebody else through their times. It's part of what makes you such a giving, amazing coach. But what's so interesting in this conversation is you were courageous in pushing yourself. A lot of times people just take what comes at them, but you also had a couple of scenarios that were kind of happening to you or certainly weren't expected with relationships. Twice since we've been working together, you've needed to end relationships. And maybe the first time you saw it coming more than you were able to verbalize at the time. But the second time, I don't think you were. And that's now got you on this journey within your journey of where, and you've talked about this openly. So again, I would never like you to put you on the spot here, but you were with a person, you moved across country with them, you had a life together. And then suddenly they let it be known to you that they don't plan to continue the way you guys had intended. And then you're like, all right, well, I'm going on the road. I'm still going to kick ass at this high level. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to work with new clients. I'm going to be a consultant, and I'm also going to do it while I'm living in Airbnbs. It's such an Angie thing to do, but it's just straight. It's the kind of thing you would have decided to do on your own, but that's so I guess what I'm trying to get at, and would love to hear your perspective on, is how much of pushing yourself those times out of the nest yourself prepared you for when life throws you curveballs.
Oh, goodness. To do that, I'm going to give a little bit of context to the breakup. And hey, traveling has made that fantastic. I can talk about it now. I had been working up the courage to give notice to Jeff's team for quite some time. And you heard my kind of hand wringing behind the scenes and preparing to do, because that's apparently part of my process. Wring my hands for 6 months, then decide to do something and then do it. I had just given notice on a Monday, and on Saturday, my partner dumped me. And it literally was like, wow. We turned off the TV and stopped watching the Great British Bake Off. And he was like, I don't think I love you the way you love me. And we're not going to move into the new house. We're buying a house. Like, there was no indication that this was coming. So like Kevin kind of hit it at a high level. It literally blindsided me and I was devastated. So then I have to tell Jeff's team, because I had given my notice and I was going to announce to the team that I was leaving, just, so that they knew where I was coming from and why I wanted to go, and that there were no hard feelings, anything like that. The day that I was supposed to give the announcement comes and goes, and the COO reaches out to me and was like, hey, weren't you supposed to do that thing? And I was like, hey, yeah, I was going to do that. But then this thing happened and I don't even what is life? I don't even know right now, anything. And she said, okay, take all the time you need. And then kind of what you said about coasting kicked in, because they said, we can undo it. You can come back. You can stay let us take care of you. You can take a little break. You can come back to work for the team. It's not a big deal. And I immediately came to you and was like, they said they would take care of me. Should I go back to my job? This is the wrong time to be doing this. I just turned over notice, and then the universe kicked me in the butt. And what is going on? Can I even do this? Freaking out. And then after I did a little bit of processing and I talked to you again said something that really just stuck out to me. It's like, you're kind of out in the middle of the water right now. You're a little far from shore. And I know that this is terrifying, but you got to keep going. Resist the urge to turn back. And so I wound up going back to them and saying, hey, I can't even articulate in words. I'm getting a little misty-eyed right now. I can't even tell you how much it means to me that you would be willing to do this for me in the wake of what's happened. I'm just going to go ahead and take this as a big old flashing red sign from the universe that it's time for me to do something different. Because apparently it takes that from the universe to convince me to do something different.
And she doesn't react to subtle messages.
Yeah. You got to drop what was that movie? I'm waiting for a sign and then somebody drops a train in front of okay, point taken. I'm going to go that way. That was just eye-opening for me, because every time that I've resisted something, I've wound up going into kind of a spiral of just potentially even over agonizing a little bit. But as soon as I start moving forward toward that thing that I was scared to do, doors open up. And that's been probably the biggest revelation of all this. And what I bring to my coaching now too is you don't have to see what happens next, but just trust that when you have the courage to open the door, there's going to be a floor on the other side. You can actually walk through it. You're not going to just drop off a cliff.
Right. That's a great analogy, a visual for it. Because it is that one step that you have to take sometimes. And you're through a door. It's very symbolic. And you're like, okay, I'm in this room now. I didn't fall straight to the ground and die. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? Let me figure this room out. And then there's another door. And, we tend to think, and social media gives us this idea that people have this success and it happens fast and it seems effortless. And man, the thing you and I think go back to so much with our coaching in all circumstances is this is your journey. Mm-hmm. And you are kind of a special snowflake. I don't like when people go, you're not a special. We are special snowflakes, man, because we process things our own way. Our circumstances are different than other people's. Our needs, our desires are different than other people's. And we have to give ourselves grace and we have to give ourselves space to think through what we want. But your story to me, Angie, is one that says, but you got to keep moving. Mm-hmm. Even if it takes you 6 months to really decide, you'll know when you're dragging it out, and that's dangerous. And that's when you got to jump.
And I could have drug it out forever and kind of gotten sucked into the agony of it all. But you're absolutely right that like it came to a point in time where there was a clear crossroads, and it was like, stay and put up with this or do something different. And doing something different has always worked out. Like, even if I didn't know how it was going to work out. And I wound up telling someone that today, like, the timeline that you have is your own. It doesn't belong to anybody else. You don't need to move any faster or slower than you move, because the reason that you're here right now is that you have something that you need to learn before you're ready to move on. And you're not going to move on until you've learned it.
Angie, you're amazing. I just want to say it. I say it all the time. I say it to you all the time. It's just, you're just the place you're at, and just the pace of this conversation, going back to it. Someone can go back and listen to our first interview together when you're still at that job and hiding in a conference room and so nervous. It was still great information, but who you are now and what you've put yourself through to get here is just very inspiring and impressive. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I really am so proud. Just as a person, I hope you're proud of yourself. And and look, again, the other reason I love doing these shows, 2 years from now, it's going to be like, man, we get a lot of catching up to do. I need to let everybody know all the new stuff I'm doing. So this is just where you are right now. What is the big focus right now?
The big focus is Permission to Kick Ass. I've got that podcast going. And then, just to kind of circle back to what we talked about, like when you give it your focus and you stop putting it off, I really started getting serious about filling spots on my podcast, recording in interviews back in February. And as of last week, we're recording this in early May. I booked enough content for the entire year of 2021. And it's still just kind of blowing my mind how fast things happen when you give them your focus.
Yeah. And that's something that this situation has allowed you to do. Like you said, that was one of the reasons you had to make these decisions, because you had these plans. You could see the vision for what you could really give to the world, when it's only maybe 10 or 25% of the time you have to give to it. It moves really slow. So I love that you're seeing the results now. It's great. So people need to be hearing from you on your list. If Angie's journey inspires you, and I bet it does, you need to be on her list. You send out at least two things a week. We got Kick-Ass Mondays.
Yeah, Kick Monday's Ass, the little newsletter.
Monday's Ass.
I like to start your business with a little bit, or start your week with a little bit of positivity. That's what Kick Monday's Ass is about.
Love that. And then we have the podcast where you interview people, and it's first of all, it's super fun to listen to, because you're you and you're colorful and you have fun conversations with people, but you also share a lot of insights. It's very real stuff. It's not tactic after tactic. So Permission to Kick Ass is the podcast. And where do they get on the list? What's the best place for them to go?
That's at permissiontokickass.com. I know I was kind of amazed that was a URL I could buy, but I own that. That is my site, permissiontokickass.com. You can sign up for emails there. I have been under tremendous peer pressure to share more of my digital nomad journey too. Yes. So be prepared for a combination of adventures and, hey, look at me washing the dishes, #nomad life.
Well, and telling stories. What was Drunk Girl Courage? Love that one. That was a road story. Love it. All right. So permissiontokickass.com. Of course, search for Angie Colee, Colee. And on Facebook, Real Angie Colee, Instagram, you know how it works. And be a part of Angie's journey. It's ongoing. It's exciting. It's always inspiring. Thank you so much for doing this with me, Angie. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. Copychief.com/copychiefradio.